All right, guys, so welcome to day two. I mentioned just briefly before, especially if you just turned up now, welcome. Hope you are looking forward to a big day. You would have noticed yesterday we dived in the deep end. That was 100% on purpose, okay? We like to do things a little bit backwards, and there's some reasoning behind this madness. The reason is I need you guys to see something to create a new reference point, so when I talk about it later, it makes sense. It has something to gravitate or attach to. Does that make sense? It's like when you go for your driving license, you read the book and then you drive the car. I get that. But do you notice it's totally different? Ideally, I'd rather drive the car in action if it was safe to do so than read the book later, because those reference points have a place to sit. So we are actually going to go back to real basic details of this ACH thing now that we've seen 3 demos. Once we've done the theory, then we'll dive into some more demos and it will make even more sense. It's like a information sandwich. Does that make sense? Okay. So remembering what we saw yesterday, really all we did was look at unconscious moments, which we'll talk about more in a moment, but also we looked at something called the hypnotic interview. But let's back it up even more. Let's go before that. Let me ask you this, guys. Why do we have problems? Not where are they located? We found that out yesterday. Why do we have problems? What are your thoughts around this? Just yell them out.
We attach meaning to things.
Attach meaning to things, yep. What else?
Keep running old tapes in our head.
Running old tapes in our head, yep.
Things are not happening the way we expect them to.
Yeah, doesn't that sound like human beings? Yep. Anything else?
We attach emotions to things.
We do attach emotions thing. We found that out to be the fuel of our problems. And when we get to something called the ETM, which is going to be today, based on my notes, I'll show you how to encourage a client to let go of those emotions so it can't be fueled the same, just like a car. Need fuel for the car to go. Why else we have problem?
We have
sometimes you might have sorry.
No, go ahead, Susie, it's fine.
Sometimes you might have something happen when
Yep.
you're in a heightened state and it becomes like a phobia or
Like
an anxiety response or something.
Yep, could be like a dog barking. You get scared and that now turns into a phobia, classical phobia creation. So we know based on yesterday, it's the unconscious mind keeping us safe and keeping us away from all dogs. We get into the phobia thing. Why else?
We carry stories about what we can or cannot do.
We carry stories. We won't get into where or how those stories begin because we could be here all day doing that. Anything else? These are all correct, by the way.
Because we're human.
Because we're human. Humans are interesting creatures. So if we know why we have problems, why do they stick around? Outside of safety, let's go beyond just the regurgitated information that everybody reads from a book. Definitely safety. Why do they hang around?
Habit.
Definitely habit comes into it. Where does a habit come from? Conscious or unconscious?
Unconscious.
Yeah. We could also probably argue it's a bit of both. It starts unconscious, and then we use conscious action to fill in the gaps. So I think it's a little bit of both. But again, mostly more unconscious. Why do they stick around?
To fill familiarity.
Yep, familiarity. Homeostasis, we call this in the unconscious mind, which we'll talk about soon.
Get locked into it and don't change unless you're forced to change.
Yep. And that's a key word here. Thank you, Eric. Unless it wants to change. Who's it?
The unconscious.
The unconscious. We talked yesterday about root cause, but I want to go beyond that because people have their own connotations attached to it. There's something I like to call the unconscious payoff. This is a key principle for ACH, and it's quite an advanced thing, but it should give a lot of light on what we looked at yesterday. The reason we do the hypnotic interview, sure, is to find the root cause, but beyond that is to find out what's the unconscious payoff. Even a bad habit has an unconscious payoff in a very positive light. And as Susie mentioned before, an unconscious payoff to a dog barking, keeping you away from its teeth, that's a positive thing right at the moment. And it happens very, very quick. But as you grow older, you're in your 30s or 40s now, and you want to buy a dog, but you can't remember how or why you feel like this around any animals. It sort of exacerbates and goes out of control, that even someone wearing a dog t-shirt frightens you and you don't know why. Okay. It's the same thing for smoking, same thing for anxiety. So the unconscious payoff gets hidden behind conscious interpretation. I think my problem is this. Now, didn't we look at that yesterday? When Bryn tells us his problem, what do we know? He's lying to us. He's not lying that there's an unconscious payoff, but he's lying to us based on his assumptions about what it is. So let's use smoking as an example, and it transfers across anxiety, all of that sort of stuff, because really it's all a symptom anyway. What could be an unconscious payoff to somebody smoking?
Calmness.
The time they're
Calmness.
happy.
Time when you were happy, so it relates to some sort of memory. Yep. Calmness.
An escape. An escape.
An escape,
from
definitely.
problems.
Yep.
Stress relief.
Stress relief.
Coping mechanism.
Coping, definitely coping mechanism.
Having
Social
company.
connection.
Yep. Company could be like inclusion, social inclusion. What else?
Could be the only time of day somebody gets to themselves.
Yeah. Bit of downtime. Interesting. We had that as that stop smoking demo quite a while back. Bit of any time to myself. I think, I don't know if she's here. I hope I can't remember her name anyway, but it was something to do like, one of the reasons was that was the last part of her before she became a mother. There's a reason for me saying that right now. What if we go beyond just the basic stuff like calmness, inclusion, social inclusion, time to escape, time to themselves? What about something so bizarre like when I was 11 years old, or when I was 4 years old, I don't know how old kids have to be, I couldn't tie my shoelace and my little sister yelled at me and laughed at me and made fun of me. Couldn't that create a smoking addiction?
Mm.
Couldn't it just be anything in the unconscious mind?
Thank you. Anything. And that is the reason why we do the hypnotic interview, because the unconscious payoff, the root cause, whatever you want to call it, can be so twisted and bizarre because that's the way the unconscious mind thinks. This whole thing of everybody has this problem because of this is absolute garbage, an absolute lie. That is impossible, because now we're saying that everybody is the same. So here's the thing, when it comes to doing the hypnotic interview, we need to find out what that unconscious payoff is. In terms that we know, we call this a knot, stuck thinking. And it's stuck thinking like, okay, Christine, Scott's the therapist. He's just found out that my unconscious payoff, my payoff for having you smoke is because you didn't get all the Christmas presents you wanted when you were 6. Me as the therapist comes in. If I don't give it another reason to change for the better, what are the chances the unconscious mind says, nah, I like my reason better? Who thinks that'd be the case? That is therapy 101. That's as basic as it needs to go. So what we're doing with therapy is we're almost talking to some extent to the unconscious mind, offering it something new, something better. And we do that by questioning it. We do that by highlighting unconscious moments. It's almost giving the unconscious mind time to say, okay, Christine, yeah, you know what? That resource of making you a smoker, even though you were 4, I don't know if 4-year-old smokes, but you get my point. That was good then. But now we're 35 and you've got some health concerns. I didn't really think about this properly. Maybe it's time to change. And then maybe it's time to change. The unconscious mind starting to create new resources. It's the aha moment. The reason it gets locked off is because you haven't given the unconscious mind a reason to do it. You haven't been convincing enough. Does that make sense? And that doesn't mean you start saying, as a non-smoker, you'll breathe better, you'll be healthier, because that's all symptom-based. So until we find what that unconscious payoff is or root cause, you're not doing a stop smoking session. And you've got to be prepared that your client's reasons for doing things, in most cases, when it gets really deep, has nothing to do with the symptom. I've been sort of flabbergasted by what my lawyers used to come up with. And I think, what the hell does that have to do with this? But that's just the way the mind works. And I have to accept that. Okay. As we go through the demo today, we'll talk about spinning around the symptom and stuff like that will make more sense. But based on what we saw yesterday, does that shed a little bit more light on the hypnotic interview and why it's crucial? It's the key. Okay. Also, this idea, can you see why this would do you a disservice to go into a session thinking you know why a client does the things they do? Makes sense, right? So let me ask you this. Why do we sit there and try and change our own problems knowing that we can't do it alone? Stupid. That's the whole personal development industry destroyed. Makes sense? Now, sometimes the unconscious mind is just pining for a change. That course will show up in your lap. That book will just show up magically. You'll have a conversation with somebody that'll say the right thing at the right time and bang, presto, you change. That's fine. That's usually because the unconscious mind has decided beforehand, hey, we need to change, so let's do it now. Has anyone had that spur of inspiration that comes out of nowhere to do something different? What's that about? It's the unconscious mind in action. That's what it's supposed to do. Now, based on what we did yesterday, can you see all we did was allow the unconscious mind to do that? That's all we did yesterday by questioning it, having fun with it, letting the unconscious mind express itself, talking to it. Instead of trying to change the unconscious mind, believe me, if you tell the unconscious mind what to do, what are the chances it'll say no and keep doing what it wants to do? But aren't we told traditionally the unconscious mind, I just have to hypnotize my client and tell their unconscious mind what to do? Do my experiment that I said yesterday. Let me know in 60 days what your bank balance looks like. The unconscious mind deems, Christine, that it's safer, more fun, and it's got a better reason. And the reason could be a millionfold. To sit on the couch and eat donuts instead of becoming a millionaire, it'll win every single time, right? We've all done that. It's why we try and fix the problem consciously. It doesn't work because it's the whole Band-Aid thing. So for us as therapists, we use the hypnotic interview to find that unconscious payoff. So when we go through the demos today, I'm going to introduce you to something called big picture thinking, where it's almost like we can teach you guys to mind read a little bit. We can get a sense of where this session's going. You can start to throw these instincts out there and sometimes get them right where a client goes, holy shit, how did you know that? A bit of foresight, and I'll show you guys how to do this to some extent. Some demos work well with that, sometimes they don't, but these become all principles. Okay, so